What's up guys, and welcome to COPYCAT episode 3. Today we'll be taking a look at a very talented artist out of Vancouver. Most of you probably know her by the name SMECCEA, also known as SMECCEA. She's a very talented artist that does incredible pieces, and when you look at those pieces, what comes to mind? Of course, a lot of pastel colors that hold back. We got a lot of fantasy-inspired elements, be it the characters or the scenes themselves. Mystical aspects that go well together and play off into amazing characters and scenes. So today we want to take a look at how to create a piece like this. Starting off in DAZ, we got a base character with a lot of different parameters that just allow us to use and create those shapes that she has in her characters. What we want to do is create a pose, and then since we picked up a D-Force item, we can simulate the clothes inside DAZ. As you can see, simulation is going well. If you're interested in the full-length version of this progress, that's up on my Patreon for all mid-level access patrons. Yeah, it's about 1.5 hours where you can see all of that's transpiring here in its full length and also commentated. So now we export our character out of DAZ and make sure we can use them in Cinema4D. So arrange our scene, import the character, make sure that we have the right aspect ratio going. And here we are. What we want to do now is just combine all the materials by alt holding and dragging into each other so we don't have any duplicates. Then we convert them into Octane materials, as you can see right here. I make sure that every material is working accordingly. Don't mind the Cinema4D crash, it is what it is. We do know our Octane. So we got all our materials set up. What we can do now is set up our camera and see what we want to do. So we want to do something like this, as you can see just flashing by our eyes right now. So I'm creating a landscape scene just to fill out the project, and then I'm using the grab tool to kind of elevate and sink in the landscape itself so we can have a path for our water to come in. And now I just copy that one landscape and put it in the back so we have a nice river flowing through our scene. What you can see me do now is just reduce everything that's out of the camera so we can have not as much geometry in our scene when we're using the scatter especially. So she uses a lot of trees sometimes in her scenes. We want to make sure that we get a few nice trees in there. I'm using Forester for this, but you can also use something else, whether it be Quixel Megascans models or models from anywhere else. And now I'll just go over to our grass, make sure that we have quite a few separate grass patches that we can now scatter using an Octane scatter. Make sure that it's affected from the random effector, so it's turned. I'm adjusting the hair and some other character related materials right now, so we have our transparency set. Edit our random HDRI and just adjust some of my render settings. There I implement our eyelashes, since those maps are always missing when exporting. And that's our base render. So I'll now adjust our scatter height and the distribution amount until we get something nice. Now I'll add some more flowers to the scene. Also make sure to get a few more seeds so we have some variation going on there, and I'll separate those, scattering first on the front aisle and then on the back aisle. Also offset with the same random effector so we get a bit more rotation differences. And what you can see me use now is Quixel Megascans for some rock assets, which will go in nicely and just scatter around the scene itself. Nothing too fancy, nothing overloaded. We just want to give it a bit more detail so it doesn't feel too empty, but still neat and tidy. We don't want to go overboard. I'm now adjusting the HDRI again and just the tree placement to frame the character itself a bit better. What you can see me do now is combine all our body parts that have skin and just remove the UV map so we can use one material for our skin only later on. without having clashing UVs. If we decide to use bump maps or anything else, so we don't have to set it up for torso, arms, and so on. I adjusted the dress, and I'll now put in my first light. As you can see, it did crash again, and we are back. So yeah, I'm adjusting the first light now. Just a frontal one, so we get some light pooling into the scene. Nothing too fancy. You can see me work on the skin material right now, which is a pink and a gold. Which is, as of now, separated by a dirt node. But I will change from dirt to fall off, so we get a nicer, smoother amount. And I'll plug in a regular gradient image for the base skin color instead of just using a plain pink. And I'll do the same with the hair, so we get a gradient going in the hair as well. And now I'll opt in for the fall off node instead of the dirt, so it just gets a bit more refined and smoother. What I'm doing now is adjusting the eyebrow color and the eye colors, just like I'm doing the eyelash color itself, all flat colors. And then I'm dragging in a bump map. Shoutouts Travis Davids, our go-to guy, into the specular water material, so we get a bit displacement going on there. Using Quixel again for the trees, just adjusting the material a bit, increasing it in size and playing around with the displacement properties. Also added a coating layer so the trees get a bit more shiny, just increase the reflection on that and the roughness. And now I'm adding in a character light, which will end up behind her, as you can see right there, a warm one, so we get some nice highlights across her torso area and the arms and a bit of the hair. Readjusting the composition right now, just a little bit, so we can frame her better for what I have in mind, because I will be placing all those spheres in a cloner, a radial one, around her arms and above her head, so we get some nice framing going with the trees and the half circle above her body. I'm then proceeding to just create a random regular emissive material with a white and play around with the post-processing settings in the Octane camera tab, so we can have this nice glint or glare going on, whatever you might call it, that she sometimes has in her pieces. Just changing around the HDRI and adding another light source to the back, a cold one, to paint the back side of the piece a bit more so it all doesn't fall flat. And I'll add another light source to the right, just add a bit more light spilling from off camera. And I'll add the Octane fog volume in the back, make sure that edge feather is ticked and absorption and scattering are both full white, and yeah, just decreasing the density until I deem it fit. And then I'll add another light source to the right, to the back right, a warm one. I'm adjusting the post-processing setting again, and I'll switch up some color on the rim light to make it more pinkish. Yeah, just changing some of the rocks placement and adding another light into her face or into the front of the scene, so we get a bit more light spill on her face. And then I'm copying the grass material 2 times and changing the color hue of it with a color correction node and just adding that to our grass, so we get a bit more grass diversity going on. And we're pretty much done with the cinema part. Just adjusting a few more things and then it's pretty much off. Yeah, I added a bit of depth of field and then it's pretty much off to our render passes to see what we might need. Cleaning up my scene here a little bit so I know what's going on. So we'll end up opting, of course, for one object layer, which is the character, so we can separate the character from the entire scene if you want to just color correct that by itself. I have the volume layer and the reflection layer, just as I have C-depth material paths and object layer, just and the post, of course, for our bloom to be separated. Export this and then just hop straight into Photoshop to do some basic color correcting in Camera Raw, make some of the colors pop, bring them forward, and adjust the tones a bit. You want to have it dark, but not too dark, yet still have some color information, colors that pop, so it pulls your focus in. adjusting here and there. Make sure I enable the bloom layer and then just color correct the reflections layer and make it so that it's just on the character, but decrease the opacity, of course. We don't want it too crazy. Adjust the volume pass. Some more levels and sharpening going on right here, and then we are pretty much done. So if you want to see the full piece, you can head on over to patreon.com /COPYCAT. The full process is there, including the Photoshop file and the Camera Raw file. The process, as I said, is commentated. The 90 minutes or a bit more that it took to create this piece. And yeah, I hope you can take something from this. Hope you guys have a nice holiday. Merry Christmas and see you guys soon.